Tonight on The Conversation.
I think I had been waiting to find, like, my guy that I was gonna be, you know, be a partner with, and we were gonna have children together and all the things. And so after my dad died, I was like, why am I can do this.
I think I finally got it right in a relationship, but I always was with people who were, have been through a lot, but hadn't gotten to the other side yet. And now I'm with someone who has gotten to the other side.
Marriage, people think, oh, you just let it happen. No, you need to create it.
There are times when I'm like, boy, I really would love to have a higher flying career right now, and I would love to be more artistically fulfilled right now. But at the same time, when I'm with my little kids, and I'm like, this time goes really fast.
The Conversation is a totally alternative interview series with women who have a story or experience to share. We talk about everything that women talk about: relationships, sex, kids, career, money problems, body image. We're basically talking about the universal language of women.
I have no sex life right now, so there's that.
But listen, you adopted a child, so it would be really hard to be having sex as well.
I keep thinking about how I could do it, how I could pull it off. Like,
I don't know, you're gonna have to either have a really good friend that you can call up, like a friends with benefits person.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna have to go out. We have to get you out on a date or find you a suitor.
Right, but no, I'm just talking about how I get laid while I have a baby.
It's really tough, but you know what? The thing in your favor, because you adopted a child, is that you don't have to do a shitload of Kegels, so you're not gonna have some lover say to you, can you clench a bit more?
Wait, but I thought Kegels would be like, yay, go more Kegels.
But the problem is when you have a child,
oh, you can't do them.
You can, but you gotta do the Kegels to get it all back again.
Oh, right, I see.
You know what I mean? So I think you're in great shape.
I know, I mean, I'm really.
You are ahead of the game, girl.
I'm I'm in such great shape right now to meet a man. I just don't have time.
But you gotta get that on your calendar.
I know, I don't have time. And then when I go home, I have my little guy, so.
That's the problem though, you gotta watch out that he doesn't,
I know, I'm not, but you know what, I really think I'm balanced. Like, I really do not think that I'm gonna be obsessive. I'm not interested in smothering him and having, I'm not tunnel visioned about it.
You get an opportunity to raise a boy into a young man that has consciousness, that treats women with respect.
Yeah.
I mean, what an awesome opportunity.
Well, it is kind of interesting to me because truthfully, what the hell am I doing raising a boy? Like, literally have no idea what I'm doing. Did not grow up with boys, except for my father. Everybody in my family there were girls, but it was all girls. And we had matriarchs in our family, you know? So it's very interesting to me that here I am, and I don't have a man in my life right now, so it's very interesting to me that here I am now about to raise this little boy.
Tell me about the adoption story. I would love you to educate me as to what that process looks like as someone who really doesn't know and would love to know.
Many people think that you go and you pick out your baby, like you go shopping in an orphanage.
I mean, I thought that.
Yeah, I know. It's fair.
Thank you.
It's fair enough. Fair enough. You're not alone. People are like, so how did you pick him? Like,
I'll have the one with the blue hat.
Yeah, exactly. We chose each other, but we did. I think I've always known I was going to be a mother, and it took me about a year to do all the paperwork for the adoption. Then I was on a waiting list for 2 years, just waiting to get a referral. So one day I got a call from them, and they said, we have a referral for you, and then they emailed the picture of him. It was just a sort of indescribable thing because really in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, that's my son.
That's him.
It was so strange.
Were you afraid at all?
I wasn't really anxious about it. I just wanted him to be here.
I mean, I was afraid having, not my first kid, I guess, but my second round, I definitely had fear of like, how do I do this? My question, I guess, about adopting as opposed to the almost 9-month process that our bodies go through in carrying a child is that hormonally, our bodies are so smart and they program us to take care of this being, you know? And there's just hormones that are released and all this stuff that helps you connect and bond with your child.
Right. I think because I had familiarized myself with it for so long.
You prepared.
And I talk to people who have adopted, and they all say, you know, and people who have biological children and adopted children, that it's the most crazy thing because you think that you're not going to be able to love that child as much, and then that child becomes your child. And I do very strongly believe that he and I did choose each other. So I think that that's really true with adopted children. And I know that he is my son. And, you know, there's just no...
You know, obviously you've adopted your son as a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
Did you... What was the process that you went through in deciding to adopt knowing you were at that point a single mom?
Well, I think that's what I was waiting for.
That's brave.
I kept, well, thanks.
It's brave.
You know, after my dad died, I realized that my family was like greatly depleted. And I think I had been waiting to find like my guy that I was gonna be, you know, be a partner with, and we were gonna have children together and all the things. And so after my dad died, I was like, why am I can do this. I know it's something I want to do in my life no matter what, and I should not wait anymore. And this wasn't necessarily what I wanted. You know, I'm always a little confused because I always think to myself, will we really choose what our life is? And I'm like, well, this doesn't really exactly feel like what I wanted it to be, but this is what it is. And so I really embraced that. And I had to accept that this is the way the road has gone for me.
Was there any part of that was a struggle?
For sure. Yeah, there was a lot of grief about having not started this journey with the man who is going to be my partner. I anticipate finishing it with the man who's going to be my partner, but I definitely had to grieve that. But I also didn't want to wait anymore, and absolutely knew that this was something that I want for my life. So, and I'm really fortunate in my life, and I feel like I can do it.
Yeah.
But I do want to say there are so many women out there who are single moms, really not by choice, and doing it and making it work every day. And you know, I don't know. I think that it's becoming much more a part of our culture, and I just hope that it will become more accepted, and that those women are going to be more and more appreciated and respected and supported in the culture.
I think what you're saying about the support for single mothers is key. You know, as far as I know, and I'm not, again, fully educated on this, but I have a few friends who are single moms. And I have seen that with their work environment, they don't have, you know, support in childcare. Mm-hmm. There is no allowance for like, listen, I'm the only person that can take my kid to school. Can I please start work at 9, not 8:30? You know, there's not a lot of leeway given to mothers or fathers, single parents.
I do sometimes get really stunned when I hear about even, you know, sometimes politicians or whatever, there are people who think that children should be taken away from single mothers, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
No, come on.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there are people out there who think that single mothers are bad.
I mean, it's crazy. Being with a guy who's being in any partnership that is no good is way worse than being by yourself.
And by the way, I want to say one other thing. I appreciate what you're saying about, you know, people respecting that I'm doing this as a single mom and all that right now. And I think I'm going to stop using the word single mom.
What are you going to say instead?
I just don't think I'm going to say anything.
Mom.
I'm just a mom.
And they kind of said, hey, they'll be great, and you can make them better than yours. And I was like, really? There aren't really.
You're like, no, I love mine.
Much better than what I got here, but okay.
I feel total gratitude just to be here and be healthy and have friends and family and being able to go after my dream. I mean, there's really not a lot I'm not grateful for.
I, right now, at the age of 64, am just grateful to be standing upright.
I practice gratitude morning and night when I first wake up and when I go to sleep. I think it's one of the things that makes me stay okay.
When I wake up in the morning, and as cliche as it sounds, like I'm happy that I woke up.
You have gratitude.
Yeah. And then I'll go into cuckoo head a little bit, and then it's like, no, you're here now, and what are you going to do with right now? The year 2008 was filled with incredible amount of loss, whether it was life lost or it was animals lost, and then having had cancer and losing my 2 girlfriends. They were pretty darn good. I was one of those, I had like perfect nipples, and they were perfect.
Really?
Yeah. When people ask me what's your favorite body part, I was like, I don't like anything about me except for my boobs.
When you were diagnosed with breast cancer, and you made a decision pretty rapidly to have a double mastectomy, it sounded like you got the information and you made a choice really fast.
It kind of seemed like that. I had actually been diagnosed months before anyone knew. It wasn't something that was a decision that I made easily, or was really not my first thought. It was really about the...
Right, you were saying that initially you were like, no way am I doing this.
No, I mean, I like yelled at my doctor like so many times. I said, no, I'm not doing this. And she gave me the statistics and the thing, and I said no, and I don't know what it was when I woke up one day, and I think there was almost like, I'd love to say that I was really empowered, but I think it was more like a it.
Right.
The one breast that they had done the 2 surgeries on it was already starting to look a little mangled, and I thought, it doesn't even belong to me. There's just this feeling of it not belonging to me.
And disassociation.
And do I want to keep doing this tests like for the rest of my life? Do I need to keep getting squished in MRIs, which are very uncomfortable? And they kind of said, hey, they'll be great, and you can make them better than yours. And I was like, really? There aren't really.
You're like, no, I love mine.
Much better than what I got here, but okay. And
did you do a photo shoot or anything?
I did.
Good.
I took lots of pictures of the girls
Good.
Before they left. But
wait, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
If you had photographs of them, were you able to try and reconstruct as close to your own as possible?
It just is different.
Right.
I think at first I was pretty okay with them as far as just, they stood up, they didn't move, and you can wear tank tops without a bra and all that.
Right.
But to be honest, I think the section of my body I've just been very disconnected with, and it doesn't. It's just a strange thing. I mean, and to go into body image, I struggled with that for so many years.
You did?
With kind of dysmorphia and, eating and not eating, and a lot of crazy went on in my early 20s. And,
me too.
Finally stopped.
In my own experience, my body will manifest my emotional issues and my stress levels.
I absolutely
in your case,
agree with that.
What do you think?
I think stress is one of the biggest causes of cancer. Even though we do know about all these genetic predispositions at this point, I've probably had so much stress in my life, and at that time too, I was going through a lot of stress.
And
I had gone through
You see,
6 months of dealing with someone very sick, and then my cat died, and then I think there was so much stuff that maybe that's why it happened at that time. There was a lot of loss that was just compacted into about 2 months of time, and I think it really floored me. It really kind of derailed everything in the way that I looked at life, and kind of started thinking how unfair everything was, and why me, and
And at what point did that change? Because that's certainly not the attitude that you have now.
Well, I think some of the loss I still deal with. Some of the loss, the things I don't talk about, the loss of a dear friend of mine and my animals, and those things are kind of the stuff that I, behind closed doors, sort of think about. But I think when I was told during one of my tests that women were not being provided MRIs through healthcare, and that they were opting to not do them, even if they were high risk, that was it. It was like everything I was going through didn't matter anymore, and that became my primary focus of trying to set up a foundation and do whatever I could to not only get it out there in the public that this is going on, but to help provide those funds. So it really took my focus off of a lot of what I was going through at the time, and kind of coming out and being 36 and saying, this happens to people under 40, it happens to people under 50.
Right.
And if you know that someone in your family has had this is so important.
What would you say have been the things that have helped you the most, that support you in your life today?
Going out and helping other people. And then also, I think I finally got it right in a relationship, but I always was with people who are, have been through a lot.
Right.
But hadn't
that.
gotten to the other side yet.
Right.
And now I'm with someone who has gotten to the other side of it, and we both know who the other person is. So that really brings me kind of back. You know, if I can look over and see someone who's my best friend, and how good can I be to him today? And how good can I be to my pooch who needs me and loves me? And those little simple things, I think, are really the things that kind of snap me out of this crazy headspace that I get into with all of that.
Essentially, you know, it starts at home, doesn't it? People say, you know, there are people doing amazing work in the world, helping a lot of people, and then their own lives, their home lives are in chaos. And I've seen that quite a lot, you know, and it really does start at home. Like, charity begins at home.
We make our bed every single day. And it's this little silly thing. That's not a silly thing, but it's something that we do every single day together, because that's the place that you wake up for. The first thing you see in the morning is your environment.
True.
So we want to keep our environment as clear and clean as possible, no clutter. And I think that's really beautiful. And just a little something that we do. And then at night when we walk in, it's clean and it's clear, and you're going into a space that's been cared for.
That's really lovely.
Yeah, and no stress.
Right.
I got really into like brushing stuff off that was not important. And I to this day am still like that. Even if someone does something that I think is really wrong and or says something or something happens,
you don't take it on.
No. Just try to go like,
so that's a gift.
Not my thing.
That's a gift of illness, right?
It's the gift of illness. If there is a gift, there are gifts in it. You know, it really makes. I never used to wake up and go, alive today. That's fantastic. How do we make this the best that we can make it?
My relationship, everything's changed with my body. Oh my gosh, you have 3 kids. It's a completely different story, and I'm still nursing. So, well, now they look small to me, but I could feed a small country.
Sexy in a partnership is definitely appreciation.
It's not just in the bedroom.
What I really, really find sexy is when 2 people give each other unconditional space.
I love conversation, so that turns me on.
Sexy is chemistry. We don't know how that happens.
If you're attracted to somebody sexually, you are attracted to them sexually.
Yeah.
And
there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it. It's not always just the body. You know, Johnny and I will be married 20 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Really, in life, to stay married and to keep finding out about the person and wanting to be together, because there's so much love and there's so many things that you work through, and going through huge highs and then amazing lows, you know, and being able to navigate that and be with somebody and keep checking in and creating it, because it doesn't happen on its own.
No.
A marriage, people think, oh, you just let it happen. No, you need to create it and keep it fun and keep it alive and funny. And we laugh. That's, I think, one of our biggest things together.
Let me ask you, 20 years of marriage. I'm 10 years in, so you have 10 years on me here, and I'm just curious, you know, how do you maintain sort of sexual attraction, you know, with your partner when you've been with them for 20 years?
Just because he's hot. I mean, you know, when you're...
Do you still think your husband's hot?
He is, but he is. I mean, I find him hot if he's 20 pounds. You should see him. Wait till he's up now. You can meet him. He looks amazing now, and he's lost so much weight, and he's been working out, but yet I love him when he was 20 pounds heavier, and thought he was really hot. It's so funny because I feel like I'm not my body. I am a spiritual being who has a body, but there is this thing with our bodies. There's so much attention and focus, especially out there, and the different, you know, magazines and everything else. So it's kind of a marriage of not putting too much significance on it, but also being able to love yourself. And, you know, it's not that big of a deal, regardless of whatever it is. And I think when you focus on it too intensely, that's when things get sort of mixed up too, you know?
And it's hard to not focus on it given the culture we're in, because the woman's body is a huge currency, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and it's revered, and it's sexualized and everything else.
So on the one hand, you know, girls are encouraged to be sexual, and then they're shamed for being sexual.
Yeah, it's that double-edged sword. They're encouraged and then smacked.
Exactly.
For doing it, yeah.
How do you feel, like my body changed a lot after having twins.
Yeah,
and every pregnancy was different. And after having twins, I really had a hard time loving my body. And I've always been a big advocate of loving my body, and I really, for the first time, didn't. It took me a good year and a half to to
love your body again. Yeah.
How has your relationship to your body changed during your pregnancies and over time?
They go through so many changes. I get really, with my first pregnancy, I gained 49 pounds, and then with Ella, 35, and then about 35. So, you know, you get big, and you know, I know friends who've gotten even bigger than that. So you're huge, and you feel unsexy at different times. But my husband is so amazing. He thinks I'm sexy whether I'm heavier or not. But the hilarious thing is, I was thinking, this is just a complete aside, and then I'll answer it. I was thinking, this was before I got pregnant, I was thinking, oh, I look really good in this dress. I'm rocking this dress, right? So Johnny comes in and he's like, you know, maybe if you were just 8 pounds light. I was like, oh, what?
Lighter.
You know, light. But for that dress, and I thought, in my mind, I hear 20 pounds.
Of course.
8 pounds is like,
of course.
Ah! And I'm thinking, oh, damn, I look good in this dress. And I'm thinking, you don't know what you're looking at, because this is, and we laughed so hard, because I said, you can't tell a woman 8 pounds. You can gently say 3, and I will hear 8. you can gently say something, but. And I want to know that dress, I'm not rocking that dress as much as I thought, because he's got a really good eye too, sort of a photographer's eye. Yeah, really good. So he's more my partner, because naked, it's love, you know, it's great. So, but you're not going to want to go out in that dress, is kind of what he was meaning.
He's looking at it from your perspective.
From my perspective,
he's looking out
exactly.
for what he knows.
Or if somebody shoots you,
yes.
or you know, something like that. But my relationship, everything's changed with my body. Oh my gosh, you have 3 kids. It's a completely different story, and I'm still nursing. So, well, now they look small to me, but I could feed a small country before. And you said yourself the same. It's like
I had 48 double G.
Oh,
I mean, what is that?
God.
Does that
even come?
I didn't know that existed. You have to have like custom
like a hammock.
It is. Totally. And by the way, like one hammock for them both.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But my husband, luckily, like probably you said yours, my husband loves my body, whatever size it is.
But I know people, I know girlfriends who it's not that case, or they're pressured into having a boob job or having this, or, you know, and I think bodies are so interesting and beautiful no matter what they are. So it's not your body so much. It really
we are not
isn't.
our bodies.
We're not our bodies. It's the person, it's the being, it's the energy, it's the electricity, it's the everything else that sort of connects you to somebody. It's the mind, it's the laughter, it's all of that that creates the sexy. And that's not going to change between us.
Any child in America could get caught up in this, you know, and it happens to middle-class kids too. It's not just poverty-stricken children.
I was in an abusive relationship, and that completely made me realize what I didn't want. And then I knew that after that I would never go back to that.
I had gone through a brutal assault, and it put me in the hospital.
If I had stayed in the situation that I was in 30 years ago, none of my creativity would have blossomed.
You know, 1 out of 3 women in America in her lifetime will be abused or raped or sexually assaulted or beaten. And I think the numbers are higher. I think it's 2 out of 3.
Because most rape is not reported.
And most abuse is not. People don't tell people, yeah, my boyfriend hits me or this or that. I mean, so that 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3, as we believe, you know, ratio, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy that our daughters, I mean, you have 2 daughters.
Yeah, and you have 1.
And I have 1. You know,
one of our daughters.
Yeah, and that's the crazy, dirty secret. And that's something that we shouldn't tolerate. No, that the whole notion of shame with rape or sexual assault, it's still very prevalent. I mean, you know, even though we can see as many SVU episodes as we'd like where you see somebody telling about their rape or their assault, people who've actually been raped and assaulted in this country don't want to talk about it. They don't want to bring it public, and they don't want people to know because it's embarrassing to them because they feel ashamed. They don't want someone to know something that private and intimate has been done to them and somehow taken from them.
I mean, it is fascinating. On the one hand, there is an applause for expressed sexuality. If you look at most magazine covers, or if you
look...
Well,
expressed sexuality is different than victimhood. You know, there's something... The problem is the line is blurred, you know? To be sexual and to be empowered by that sexuality is very important, because otherwise we're living in this dark ages where women were ashamed of being sexual and the ones who were openly sexual were whores. So we don't want that.
How did you get to these realizations? Were there events that occurred in your own life that led you to start examining what your role is as a woman?
One of the greatest examples of how to be a wonderful person for me was my grandmother. She was like the most loving, warm, generous person I've ever met. And she had such wisdom and beauty in her eyes. And she had the hardest life. She had, I mean, really, for a mother, like a nightmare life when you think about like how much you love your children and what you would do for them and what you wouldn't tolerate.
Why was it a nightmare?
She and my grandfather, they had, you know, issues in their marriage. Right. They came from a traditional society where men were very machist and jealous, and, you know, there was some abuse there. And one night the abuse got so bad that my grandmother decided to run away. And she asked her 3 boys to come with her. And only the baby would say yes, and that was my dad. And the older brothers, you know, never forgave her for it. And recently, somebody said she should have stayed, you know, she should have called the police. And I was like, you know, in those days, I don't really think the law was on their side. You know, this was in like the 40s or the early 50s. Barely. And she was afraid for her life. She was afraid for her life. And so she ran away, taking my dad with her. And they were on the lam for 3 years, running across America. And then one day, my grandfather showed up on the doorstep. And
how did he know where they were?
I don't know how he traced them. I
think know.
He just asked around. He followed. For 3 years, he tried to find her because he loved my dad. You know, so he didn't, you know, for all of his flaws, he loved my dad very much. He loved his other 2 sons very much, as she loved all 3 of their sons. But, you know, she was afraid for her life. And so he said, come on, son, we're going home, and picked him up and took him to the airport. And when he got to the airport, the police said, you know, your wife is looking for you. She's, you know, filed a report. And then my dad apparently was dirty from playing in the yard. And they said, but look at him. Look, he's filthy. Get on the plane, go.
Ooh. Oh my God.
So obviously the law was not going to be on her side in those days, and she literally went crazy.
Really?
I mean, she was so brokenhearted. I mean, imagine, you know, she wasn't allowed to see her boys then for like from the time my dad was 12 to the time he was like 19 or something. She would write them every week. She knew where they were, but she wasn't allowed to come and see them. So I think that had this gigantic influence on my life because, I mean, she was such a loving person. I can't even tell you. Somehow she did not have bitterness. Somehow she, like, forgave everybody. And she was just so loving. Like, she just was the person you could come and tell all your problems to. She would never judge you. She had this huge, raucous laugh. She had all these talents and dreams that were never fulfilled, and yet somehow, to me, she's one of the most heroic people I've ever met, and it's not based on achievement. It was based on love and kindness and just like the biggest heart in the world. So I think that has really fueled my worry for women and for my own self and for other women, that they should never allow themselves to be hit, and they should never allow themselves to be, you know, treated as objects or as whores because of something they want to achieve or some expression they want to have. Because basically women are the second-class citizen, even in cultures like our own. Like, why is it that even this little movie that I saw the other day with my kids about the buddies, you know, those doggies that they talk, only one of them is female? Why isn't it 50-50? Why is it like 5 boys and 1 girl? And that's just kind of like if you look at our government or if you look at movies, even though, you know.
Why do you think that is? What's your perception? I mean, you know.
It's so hard. It's so, and once you become a mother, it's harder because you're like, okay, there's a reason women aren't as dominant in the workforce is because once you have children, you actually, and this is an unpopular opinion that I'm going to express, but you actually start to debate whether you really want to be in your career as much because you love your children so much.
Absolutely.
You want to be with them. You want to have time for them. And you've only got 100% of yourself. So you're going to split up the pie in whatever fractions there are, but it pained me to be away from them.
I don't know anybody, I don't know any working mother that has got it down that says, yes, I have a formula that works. It's just which one is taking the hit at what time.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's hard because, you know, there are times when I'm like, boy, I really would love to have a higher flying career right now, and I would love to be more artistically fulfilled right now. But at the same time, when I'm with my little kids and I'm like, this time goes really fast when they're like little and love you so much and need you so much.
I know.
Like you are their world, you know. And that is a love that I had never, like the unconditional love of my grandmother has only been repeated through my children. Like the feeling of like total abandon that I could be free to love with my full heart unguarded has been with my children.
2 things that I'm really seeing with you are compassion and curiosity. And combined, I can see why that has propelled you to do the humanitarian work you've done.
When Amnesty asked me to do the Stop Violence Against Women campaign, one of the topics under it of violence towards women was human trafficking, modern-day slavery. And I really wish it was just called modern-day slavery because people think of trafficking as like the movement of objects, and it's really the sale and use of people against their will. So working as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes Goodwill Ambassador to combat human trafficking, I realized I'm going around the world lecturing about the evils of slavery and the exploitation of human beings in other countries.
But it's happening here in America.
Here it's happening. That opened my eyes because I had no idea.
Most people don't.
Lincoln freed the slaves. We're proud to be American. We don't have slavery. We ended that, you know, over a century ago. Wrong. It's still happening. It's a growing business. It's now tied for second most profitable illegal enterprise in the world, just after drug smuggling. Any kind of child sexual exploitation is human trafficking, any kind of it. And that's a huge point because in our United States, many states have this sort of backwards, archaic view of child prostitution. They see children in prostitution as bad kids who are guilty of the crime of prostitution rather than victims who are being exploited by their pimps who are traffickers.
Yeah, I mean, at least my understanding of it is that when a girl is picked up, you know, and she's booked as the criminal and the John gets, you know, a John ticket, which is the equivalent of, you know, an expensive parking ticket. And then she has a criminal record, her community knows about it, she can't go apply for a job. It's completely ass backwards.
It ruins a girl's life or a boy's.
Right.
Any child in America could get caught up in this, you know, and it happens to middle-class kids too. It's not just poverty-stricken children, but it certainly is more likely to happen to kids who are nearing homelessness or something like that. When you hear their stories, when you talk to them one-on-one, they are so full of hope. They have this possibility in them and this artistic voice and these plans for the future that if they stay in that criminal status and they get no help, no funding, no housing, no education, no support, no love, no sort of foster families to adopt them, then their future is very bleak.
Our friend Rachel Lloyd started an organization called Gems Girls,
yeah.
and I went and sat and met girls who had been, you know, through that program, and then helped girls that were coming in.
Yeah.
And my perspective and my world too changed from hearing stories of women who had been forced into prostitution and were, you know, living off of the streets of the United States.
I know firsthand how much violence there is to women, even in our safe little society here.
When you say firsthand, you mean through your own experience or your family?
Seen it, best friends, my grandmother, everything, you know, so.
And how crazy, by the way, that you can have witnessed your grandmother and probably seen people around you. And I know for me, with my own experience of living with violence, I was fully aware that it happened, and yet I somehow woke up and I'm like, I'm in it. How am I in this? I have awareness. I'm not an idiot. Yet here I sit.
Yeah,
and then how do you turn that to
well, it
actually
becomes
use
like
it
an
for
addiction
something?
almost, like to stay in an abusive
Absolutely.
relationship. Like, you know, I was in one relationship for a long, long time, and I would cry just about every single day. The relationship would make me cry every day. I was so miserable, and I just felt like I was becoming smaller and smaller, like I was living on a postage stamp. I couldn't be myself anymore. You know, and my grandmother used to, counsel me when I was having a rough time, and sometimes I would just remember her voice, you know, and just saying, you know, he doesn't really care about you, he just cares about himself. And, you know, darling, get out of this. And, you know, and even though she had been dead since, you know, I was in my early 20s, I always think of her and that sort of, that lovingness that I was worth more than the life I was living.
What is your biggest vice?
Chocolate. This might be where we're parting, so we're gonna remain friends here. No, seriously.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Travel.
To really follow your intuition.
Parents are just poor schmucks trying to figure it out like the rest of us.
Let go.
Be myself.
You have to be true to yourself.
Remain true to yourself.
Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself.
Somebody said to me, the body is so fair. It responds to what you do to it. So whether it be good things or bad things, it's very truthful.
What is your biggest vice?
Chocolate.
Glazed donuts.
Dessert. I really love food.
My problem is that I love the food.
Me
so
too.
much.
I would say pleasing people.
I am definitely a perfectionist.
Marijuana is my biggest vice.
Probably like bad TV.
Oh, well, I used to like Rock of Love. Not the later ones. I wasn't so much into like the tour bus one.
I watch so many reality shows that are so horrible.
I thought reality shows were the devil. I thought they were the decline of civilization. This might be where we're parting, so we're gonna remain friends here. I've gotten addicted to a couple of them.
What is your favorite sex position?
Really? There was nothing about this on the questionnaire.
It depends on whether I'm being passive or aggressive.
I would definitely say doggy.
Doggy style.
Doggy style.
I don't know. I'm kind of traditional.
It really depends on the guy.
I mean, it depends.
Okay.
Do I have to answer that?
72, no. 69.
Like physically or like talking about sex? Because talking is so titillating.
Masturbating all the time.
But try 72, because it's kind of fun.
And I just pictured it. Oh, wow. Oh, no.
Okay. What would you tell your 14-year-old self?
I would tell my 14-year-old self to hang in there because you'll have sex one day.
And then you might not for a while.
And then I might not for a while, yeah. What would I tell my 40-something-year-old self?
What would you tell your 40-year-old something?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Enjoy the experiences that you're having because it will help you later. Don't complain. Be thankful.
Oh, don't hate yourself so much.
Interesting.
Just to not worry so much about like the eating and thinness business, because it'll all work itself out, but that was very stressful for me. And that one day you will be in charge of your own life and things will get less crazy. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, you're gonna get, and you're gonna get out of school where people are mean, and you're gonna go to Harvard where people are all geeks like you, and you're gonna have a good time.
I would tell my 14-year-old self to keep doing exactly as I was going to be doing, but to have faith.
Know what your goals are, know what you want, and you can always be that, or do that, or have that.
I go to church on some Sundays and I pray as much as I can. I actually am really grateful to God for my life and for my kids and my family, my husband. Like, I feel like very blessed, so. And I feel like, what's our purpose here if we're not helping others with our experiences? And I feel like, you know, we're here to serve. We're here to make the world a better place for other people.
I think it's really difficult to help others if you don't have that fullness. I mean,
yeah,
you've got to start here and then start there. And even though this has happened to me and there's been some really parts about it, when women walk up to me and say, hey, you know what, I didn't know I could go do this test, or and I did, and they found cancer, but they found it early, and if you had said something, yeah, I mean how can you not be grateful?
You need to be able to create and have a great, full, rich life, and play and go swimming, and we travel and we laugh and we dance and we do everything to filling ourselves so that we spiritually are stronger and wiser and happier and fuller.
When my parents died, it shifted so that I started meditating and doing all the ritual less and experiencing my life as if it was my spiritual practice more. We're not all meant to be sitting up at the top of a mountain in silence.
Wow.
So now, my spiritual practice is, I literally look at my life as my spiritual practice. That doesn't mean that I live this like pious, like,
no, of course,
you know what I mean? It means that I live a life that's alive and that feels, you know, that feels like something real.
So interesting. I don't own a hairbrush. Right. My daughter has a hairbrush. I don't have a hairbrush.
Except I have the one that I use in the shower.
I use it in the shower with a conditioner, and then I leave it.
Yeah.
That's the way, isn't it?
That's all I do.
Somebody else is shooting the still, actually.
Oh, as we're posing into your motion picture camera.
Tattoos are so permanent.
I know.
My gosh.
I know. I always said it would always be something that meant something, and this
it
whatever I did what I did to cover the apple
didn't mean anything. It's covering the apple.
It's so ugly. I don't know how a tattoo artist could actually walk away from it and go, that I would like to represent.
Looks good,
That's
baby.
my artwork represented on you. Looks like I got shot.